Hello, everybody. How are we doing tonight?
We good.
Excellent. I'm just gonna sit here and pretend we haven't been talking for the last half hour. But we are going to jump right into our game tonight because I know everybody's been very eager to explore Mistros, in particular the city. Vulcanos finally touching on Thurgold's story. So, when last we left off, you guys settled the remainder of your affairs back in Albanor. Including anchoring your previous homestead in your puzzle box to the material world for a brief time while construction can occur and you start building your little town. Thankfully under the guiding hand of Baroness Strata Indrik, Valerica's mother, who is assisting with the process. Having set all of that to mature and ferment in your absence, you teleported to the Mistrosi city, one of the capitals across the entire continent, to the city of Vulcanos, the home of the Divine Forges in Mistros, and Thurgold's old stomping ground, back when he was dedicated and sedentary cleric of the Forge. Before his days as a... but you were received with welcome, open arms. You were invited in to the city, shown around a little bit, and then immediately taken to diplomatic housing, where you were given full reign of the suite and any need. Awaiting a rest, as it is much, much later in the day here. Thank you, Talons. But ready for the morning, for the ambassador, the gentleman that you met, to have a word with you about what you are for time.
So is it the morning now?
But I do believe that you guys took a long rest last time.
Yes.
So, yes, after a night of harassing Throkis, your favorite servant, bringing you maps and food.
Not a game-breaking thing. I just want to say I cast a couple spells into my ring of spell storing before I went to sleep.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. I trust you. Make note of that.
Yes.
As long as you have the components for it. For sure. But you do have a restful evening. Yourselves in the still fairly warm and slightly uncomfortable environment. It was definitely a lot hotter, stuffier than you are used to. Selima, you being, from the outdoors, usually to this heat. Thurgold, you're right at home. But it was also winter where you guys were, so it is quite a shock to the system. With that in mind, you do wake up refreshed and ready for the day. You were not given a time when your ambassador, Antares, would arrive or call on you, so you have a bit of cursing them. So, what would you like to do?
Selima, was that the first night that you've slept inside?
I've slept inside caves and dwellings like that, but
I mean,
to be perfectly fair, it's your mother's estate. Right. A little muggy. I'm used to colder, cooler, damper locations, but the real first time indoors in many, gosh, how long has it been? Was at your estate. First time in a long time. Did you rest well, or did you have to throw more ice down?
To the side and see like 6 ice shards. I had to throw more down. It's very hot here.
Slightly melting up. There's just this thin layer of water everywhere.
Here's the damp I missed. All right.
slightly tepid. Fill it enough.
Slush.
And eventually it'll turn into a little bit of a hot spring. Sure.
Liv takes a moment to sniff her armpit. She's like, "Fuck, guys, I think we're all starting to smell like Thurgold now."
Cleansing orb. Good morning, sunshine.
Now you can explain why it was kind of pointless cleaning all the time.
I respectfully disagree.
No excuse for lack of hygiene. Nuh-uh.
You're on your own.
Good morning, my friends. Did you all sleep well?
I look at the ice. I look at Thurgle. Sure.
It's definitely like it's magical.
How did you sleep?
Like a fucking baby, that's for sure. This is probably the most comfortable night of sleep I've had in a while.
Wonderful. There's always a warm kinship in being home.
Definitely. Felt like sleeping in the forge itself.
Yes. Yes, I imagine that is an accurate statement.
So, Liv, I would assume you would like to taste the local foods.
You know, if this is the homes are, I'm not sure I do, but I'm getting a little bit hungry here, so wouldn't say no to a good breakfast.
Of course. Let's see what we can scrounge up.
Before we
So,
leave, Thurgle, is there anything you recommend that we prepare or kind of brace for as we go out today? Do you have any idea what we might be expecting here?
Are your people receptive to those that look like us? Would be a good question.
Oh yes, our islands have many diverse people. They would not bat an eye at our group, so there will be no ill will between any of us.
And what about this little one?
They may stare and wonder, but I'm pretty sure that they've seen at least some form of dragon at some point. I mean, we are in a volcano, essentially.
Speaking of familiars, question to the GM: would they be affected by the environment in the same way that we are? Like, would I notice that my poor fur-covered animal is like dying of heat right now, or does it not affect them at all?
Not so much. Not as much as it would affect you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'd say that they may be a little uncomfortable because it's an environmental change, and they are connected to you. But I mean, unless it's something like they're taking damage or they're suffocating, they're fine.
Okay.
But, apparently, Sparks is just dramatic. And decides
Sparks
to
is
fall
dramatic.
off your shoulder. Yeah.
It's too hot.
It's too hot. It's too
For a dragon.
That's saying something.
You do.
Dang.
So at this point, I'm going to try to signal somebody to get some fine local foods.
All right. Sounds great. Yeah, you see a halfling woman in the typical kind of servant garb, kind of wandering around. She seems to be carrying like a tray of linen around. Kind of flag her down. She gives you a nod. Can I help you?
Yes, I would like to know who we can signal to possibly get sampling of all the foods available on our islands.
Finest cheeses and breads.
Yes, including finest cheeses and breads we have to offer.
Well, on the guest, if you would like to head down to the banquet hall, there's always food prepared for morning. If you would prefer things to be brought up, as soon as I deliver linens, I can do stuff.
Make our way down to the banquet hall, that's fine.
Yeah, I think we can make our way. Thank you for the offer.
It gives you a very respectful kind of smile. Please do not hesitate to ask if you need anything else.
Which way is the banquet hall?
She kind of looks and kind of indicates down the hall and then down the flight of stairs to your left.
Perfect, thank you.
Follow the smell.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
To the banquet hall.
All I smell is the soot and the heat. Am I supposed to smell something else?
Eventually,
Technically.
you as you kind of get about halfway down this little set of stairs, you come into like this little recessed area. Similar kind of tiling everywhere, murals painted on the walls. These kind of lavish pillars, delightful filigree top, kind of mosaic. You do start smelling the undeniable scent of cooked food. You can definitely smell some breads and pastries. You smell the smell of a fresh fire, and for most of you, had no concept of what a fresh fire is, but it is a distinctly cleaner smell than the kind of heavy, acrid scent that's constantly lingering. It's almost a welcome reprieve, like that wonderful wood burnt smell, as opposed to like charred stone and metal.
Ah,
I like this smell. The smell is significantly better.
why couldn't you spend more time in a smell like this?
I do. It just includes metal after a while, so it doesn't stay as fresh.
So looking around, you do come to a large area that seems to have a number of tables that have been laid out with some food. It seems either in your preparation or preparation for any other guests that are here. It's very much a kind of grab and eat situation. There are a handful of servants with pitchers and jugs, carrying trays and plates of various types of food around as well, with drinks. A couple have towels and cloths, other things available. Looking around at the food, you see a variety of breads, pastries, buns. Some look savory, some look sweet. You definitely see a wide variety of dairy products, which is pretty surprising considering the penchant for dairy to spoil in high heat. But they seem to be pretty good. As you kind of approach the area, you do feel the temperature drop in a localized space. Valerica, you being with arcane magic would know that these are probably enchanted serving platters.
Mm-hmm.
Like the vessels containing them are probably enchanted to keep the area colder. You've run across items like that in the past, like bags and chests and things. In fact, I think you guys have one in your mansion.
The bag of colding.
Yeah, you guys have an item of colding.
We have 2 bags of colding and 1 extra bag of holding.
Awesome.
One of the bags of colding supposedly has a hunk of the flesh from the walls still.
I don't like remembering
that's not
that.
come back to bite you.
I don't like remembering that at all.
Well, it's only there because you won't let me try and eat it.
Okay.
It's gone now.
Well, mercy at that point.
If you really must, I will not stop you when we get it back.
Are you good with eating human?
There's
it
nothing. Fun.
What is the
Sure.
muscle of a human? How much do you need to genetically modify it before it no longer is considered human?
We're genuinely not sure what this is.
Fair point.
Margarine is one ingredient away from rat poison.
So we guys do some experiments on it first. But anyway, I'm going to try this cheese because I'm marveling at the fact that it has survived in this heat.
So looking around, turning your attention back to the food before your stomachs are too soured to enjoy anything. You do see a variety of cheeses, some harder, some softer, some creamier. You see yogurts, sour milks and creams. Looking around, you see a variety of kind of cold cut meats. Seems like they've been kind of preserved and then sliced thinly. You see various kind of grain and nut, like bars and bowls. Lots of honey, fruit soaked in honey. Variety of eggs. A lot of different kinds of fruits.
Are there any fish?
There are a couple of fish dishes. Kind of a light, Yeah, kind of a lighter white fish. Doesn't have much in the way of like a scent or anything to it. Yeah, you see a couple of like drinks that kind of give off a notable like herby smell. A couple of bitter looking drinks. Yeah, it's a nice spread of foods.
Interesting, Thurgle. I thought your people would have more fish.
You would think, but this is breakfast.
I'm gonna grab like a sweet roll and like a cup of tea and like a little bit of the fish
Sounds good.
and some cheese.
Liv gonna grab some of the creamy cheese and put it over a bread roll and grab some of the honey-soaked things to try.
Sounds good. Anybody else eating?
I'm just gonna.
indulge myself.
You're going to indulge yourself, you said?
Grab and move.
I need all of you to make wisdom saving throws, please.
What's that?
I need all of you to make wisdom saving throws, please.
Wisdom saving. I'm scared.
16.
11.
16.
15.
Okay, cool. This is some of the best food you've ever had. It is hard, especially for you, Thurgle. This is food you grew up with and lived with for the longest time, and you know exactly why. Right outside those gates, some of the best farming in the world. Right at the foot of the volcanoes. Ooh boy, doesn't get much better. The rest of you, this food is good. It is fresh, it is clean, it is rich, it is flavorful. It is all you can do not to gorge yourself on. It's almost enchanting.
Can I take a look at the food and see if there's any dusting over it?
Oh sure, yeah. Go ahead and make an investigation check.
Just cocaine.
Liv comments to Thurgle. You know,
17.
considering your eating habits, I wasn't
Looks like
expecting
all perfectly
you to
clean.
eat such good food.
Mm-hmm.
I do have
Valerica.
advantage against being charmed.
That's fine. That's fine. As you're all kind of sitting there, you realize it's just good food. It's just really good.
Mm.
It's unusually good. It's
Did it blow all of my clothes off?
no, not quite.
Thank God.
Not quite.
Nobody
But that does give me an idea for a magic item.
That's hilarious.
A new like supercharged dust of deliciousness.
Well, I'm definitely gonna go back and get more if it's this good. I'm gonna
Yeah,
get
no,
cheeses
it's
and fruits
excellent.
and just pile up and
Yeah,
gorge.
It's excellent. I mean, you can definitely pace yourself. You're not like whoa, but no, it's good food.
Do I feel like anything that's magical is going on with this?
Not at all, actually.
Okay.
No, it's just it's
See him
really
has
tasty.
made things shady. I'm uncomfortable.
You know what? Last time I ever got to make you guys roll wisdom saving throw for good food.
I can't tell if we all passed or we all failed.
You all passed.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
And this is why you don't do mechanics when you're just trying to impart some flavor that makes your players suspicious.
Start eating. Roll a dexterity throw.
Like, what?
it didn't make
You bit your cheek and
I have a drinking problem.
So Thurgle, you definitely see your friends and your companions kind of marveling over the deliciousness of the food. And like I said, you know exactly why.
So, I have to let you in on a secret. Volcanic soil is fantastic for farming. All of this food is a product of locally raised and grown food.
Huh.
Nothing needs to be imported when you have the most succulent soil to make anything.
You know, I get to put up the heat a little bit if it means I get to eat delicious food all the time.
It sure tastes great. I really appreciate it.
Method acting. Alright.
Please enjoy yourselves. This is essentially what we will get the entire duration we are here. Even the stored food, what we take out onto the ships, though it may be preserved, it is still such fine quality.
Thea, like here?
I feel like I need to clarify something. Completely different part of the world.
But you two grew up together.
No.
No, he just happened to grow up with dwarves on a completely different section.
Well, that's racist. I'm just eating fruit.
So Thanagal, where is the outside?
Through that door?
Yeah, there's this large double door. Lovely ornate and carved. Instantly, as you point over, you do see a familiar kind of stocky dwarf in his lavish, loose robes and his cloak, his red and black.
Look, it's your ornate friend. Hello.
You all do recognize Antares, your personal ambassador to the city. No sign of his friends, though. No sign of the other two that were.
I whispered to Thanagal, your food is putting Valerica in a very good mood. She's very cheerful this morning.
Maybe we should pack some to go.
It's probably a good idea.
As he approaches, he says, "Yeah, fine morning. I thought I would see you here. So, are you enjoying the food?"
Mm-hmm.
Very much.
Very much so.
It is as I remember.
Excellent. It is some of the finest you will find in all of the world. So, are you eager to get started?
Always.
I
Excellent.
believe we are.
I never like sitting around for too long.
So, we did receive some word as to why you are here. And I must profess I am quite curious as to how you know of our little pirate problem.
It came to me in a interesting sequence of events, if you will. We were dealing with a problem in the mainland, and strange creature provided me visions of the situation, and it grew me concerned, so I conferred with Hephaestus, and he agreed that it is something that needs to be handled immediately.
Kind of see he kind of squints his eyes, furrows his brow kind of heavily. You say a creature gave you vision.
Yes.
What manner of creature was this?
He claimed himself to be a god, the Lord of Eyes.
Sorry, went down the wrong hole, and I shoot Thurgle a look.
Okay. Okay.
Careful, I know the food's delicious. Please, let's drink some tea.
He claimed to be a
Tea,
god, you
Thurgle?
say.
Yes, we'll not really go into details, but it was a vision provided by him, and conferring with Hephaestus, he confirmed the truth of it.
So you've spoken with Hephaestus.
Yes, I have.
That certainly puts sense to mind. So, well, your visions, whatever they may have been, I'm certain have truth to them. We have noticed an increase in piracy in our shores. Please. He kind of looks around. How much more do you know?
Is there somewhere safer we can speak?
Kind of gives you a nod. Shall we retire to your quarters?
Of course. Is there a way we may be able to bring the temperature down for my friends? They are not as acclimated to the temperature as we are.
I will certainly see what we can do.
I appreciate
Be lovely, thank you.
He kind of calls over, kind of brusquely, one of the servants who kind of totters over. See them kind of exchanging for a bit. Kind of runs off. It will be taken care of. So,
Thank you.
shall we?
Please.
Yeah.
And also, let us get the plate to go so we can bring some food to the room.
Ah, of course. And he kind of snaps his fingers. You see a couple of servants kind of gather up plates of things and start following you along.
Everybody's stuffing rolls in their fucking pocket.
And a whole series of servants now carrying trays for you. So, you make your way back up to your quarters. It is not yet cooler, but without knowing the mechanism of how it works, who knows how long it'll take. But eventually you are led into the room. You have now a miniature buffet set up for you by the servants, who are promptly dismissed. And the door closes behind them, leaving only you and the ambassador. So, how much more do you know?
When we were with the Indrik estate, we ended up consulting with the mage to search some things out. And I included the ship that we were looking for. And on this ship, it is the captain of the Grey Siren. Do you remember or know of the Grey Siren?
I am not personally familiar with any such ship.
He was one of the few pirates that we were always on the lookout for. Was never able to stop him or sink any of his ships. He was very elusive until the final day that he brought down my last ship I was on. Myself and very, very few others survived that last encounter. I still, to this day, am not sure how he did it, but he is now in command of one of those ships.
Do I believe him?
Roll an insight check. You see he kind of, rests his hand on his, or his chin on his hand, looks.
17.
17? I'll get to you in a sec. He kind of considers what you're saying. Do not know of any such captain. But if he proved himself to be as dangerous as you say, then it would make sense this might be the same. Valerica, kind of looking at him, seems honest, seems kind of earnest. He's listening for the most part, trying to understand. He's definitely guarded.
Does it seem as though this individual is withholding information relevant to the topic at hand?
He's mostly asking questions, but his few statements haven't really indicated that he's hiding anything. He's definitely thinking through, so it's mostly partial stuff. He takes...
I would like to actively watch him.
Okay, actively watching him. Got it. Okay. Well, I do not know if this is the same captain of this Grey Siren that you speak of. But what little we do know is that there is an individual calling himself the Ziklos. And, well, he has become quite a mythical figure, almost. There's nobody who has any confirmation that such a person exists, but kind of looks around again. I'm assuming you know about the Karos and how it is missing.
Yes, and when we consulted that mage, I saw him standing on the bridge with an older elven first mate.
Well, we had hoped that the reports... You kind of see him hang his head a little bit. We'd hoped the reports were simply exaggerated. rumors that were stirred up by the fiends attacking our home. Seems as though there is some confirmation. It is not just lost, but taken.
Yes. I'm not sure how he mustered the crew for it, but he has the entire ship crewed out, and he's wearing a slightly larger hat than he should, so I think he gave himself a promotion.
Kind of see him give a half-cocked smile, kind of a very, very lackluster expression. Well, we've been mostly quiet about these things, so as not to cause panic. The confirmation of one of the legendary forge ships being taken by pirates is not good for the public. There have been several villages along the coasts and some small islands that have been destroyed. For what purpose, we do not know. They seem to just be laying away.
Do you know which ones?
I can provide you with a map of the places that have been attacked.
Is there a pattern?
Not that we know. Not that we can see.
With the destroying of these villages, has there been anything taken, anything been stolen, any people have been removed?
You see him kind of glower a bit and furrow his brow very heavily in this. Valerica, since you're actively watching him, you see this look of contempt on his face. I don't know if they're targeting anything in particular since it's everywhere, but they've gone so far as to even start desecrating temples. And they're ransacking the treasures in. They also seem to be able to elude us like nothing we've seen.
Has it been specific temples, or?
It doesn't seem to matter. And kind of looks around and then kind of up. And then you see him kind of focus in like a specific direction. Thurgle, make a perception check.
Passive 17.
Understood. With advantage because it's your home.
Thank you.
Good call.
Because that was horrible.
Sad.
22.
22? You kind of follow his gaze and kind of take stock of the direction you're facing, and it takes a moment for it to connect, but you realize he's looking in the direction of the mainland and likely directing his gaze towards Pyrgos, the mountain of the gods. And his voice kind of grows low. And there has been question as to why this has been allowed. Why the god of the sea is not doing something. As even his temples are being desecrated. And yet he seems to.
Maybe that's what we're here for. Maybe your God has chosen for us to help.
I can.
Thinking about these words, you know that the god of the sea is an incredibly vicious deity. Does not take slights very lightly. There's a reason that it has that he has the epithet of the lurking. He doesn't really hesitate to send things after people, so this is odd.
Do you have any clerics of the god of the sea?
We do have some priests here.
Has anyone tried communing?
No avail. In fact, most of the deities have been quiet.
You say that when you're ransacking the temples and such, is the ability to communicate with your gods in these temples? Are they trying to destroy your connection to the gods?
It is possible, but that wouldn't affect people here. There's the divinity on all of the temples and shrines here. So we would think that those who dwell within this city would have no problem. But the fact that you spoke to Faustus, well, now makes me wonder if we've done something to deserve this that we don't know. Because one is speaking. You see, he kind of glares for a moment. Valerika, you see the slightest hint of suspicion before it vanishes and it returns to a pain and fear.
Know of anything that would have caused a rift between you and your deities?
All of them at once? I have no idea. It is not... kind of looks at you. He's weighing his words very carefully. His eyes kind of train right back in the same direction that they did before. You are not from this land, so... let me put it this way. It is not difficult to offend them. They are... you say is not fickle, but willful and direct. We know that the gods of other lands are not quite as involved as ours, but ours do not hesitate to make their will.
When was the last time you heard from your gods? Anyone in your entire city?
Weeks. It's been weeks.
Do you have a specific date, like when the ship went missing?
He thinks for a moment. Perhaps a few days before, yes. Though it took some time for everyone to realize it. Now that you mention it, possibly a few days before the Karos disappeared.
Have you ever experienced a period of no communication with your gods before this?
We have, though not for many years. The last time was, you see, he kind of puts on a bit of a grim smile and kind of a flat amusement kind of creeps onto his face. Last time it wasn't a problem. They just didn't talk. They were too busy, celebrating.
Kind of endearing, actually. Now, I, being a foreigner,
Yes.
have a question, and I apologize tremendously if it will come across insensitively. You'll have to forgive my ignorance on the subject. If we do find this ship, would it be a greater offense to sink the ship? Or to allow this man to continue doing what he is doing?
He's quiet for a long time. You can see him considering. I cannot claim to speak for or with them. They're priests. I do not tend to their temples. He kind of looks over at Thurgle, and I do not share such connections as those of others. But were I in such a position, I would be inclined to say that it is better to lose one idol of worship than all of them. One can be rebuilt with time, but all of them destroyed, be restored.
Are the others well hidden, or are they in use?
As soon as the Karos was... as soon as it vanished, now we know, stolen. The Deadlos and Pythagos were put into hiding.
And what of the last?
But there are only 3.
Oh, my mistake. I thought there were 4.
Just 3.
I see.
Does it seem in their pattern of ransacking that they're looking for the other ships, perhaps?
They don't seem to have... They don't seem to be approaching them. Or
It's uncommon for pirates.
they don't know where they are, and they don't seem to be extending themselves that far out. We, well, forgive me if I do not reveal at this moment.
If that's wise on your part.
But suffice to say, they are hidden. My knowledge, they may not even be where I think they are. So, best keep such things safe. Yeah. Well, good news for me at least. This doesn't change much of what I was going to ask of you. I have requisitioned a ship that was set to go on roll. Is Takis. It is captained by a very honored. It is my hope that you would join them on their patrol. See if there's anything that you could do to root out or find or intercept any potential activity. The gods willing, kind of get a little flat. You will interrupt them in their deeds. But I hope you would forgive my lack of faith in this matter.
It is understood. When you do not hear from the gods for a while, you do seem to doubt their existence themselves. But I was thankful and grateful enough to have Hephaestus visit me before we even came here to provide me with information. So I am still in touch with him, and he with me.
And then I pray that that remains the case. If we have even one on our side, then we may just be able to solve whatever this problem is.
Personally, I do think he is the greatest. I am a little partial, obviously, but
You see him kind of like hitch his breath slightly, and like this very, very well trained diplomatic facade slips ever so slightly into like amused shock, and then it just kind of immediately goes back to him. We all have our preferences.
he is the one who essentially oversees these ships themselves. So
This
I do
is true.
believe
This is true.
we may have an upper hand.
I certainly hope so. And I hope that you find answers as to why he has allowed this to occur.
I hope to find them as well.
Well, if you're rested, I can escort you to the harbor. Introduce you to the ship and its crew. Then
That sounds lovely. Might we have a few minutes while you go drop that map for us to see which towns have been hit?
very well.
And then meet back here, and we should be able to make our way down to the shoreline.
Then shall we say we convene in an hour? Allow you to gather your things, plan, discuss, and I will take the time to make sure the maps are drawn up to a usable degree.
That would be wonderful.
Appreciate
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming. Anything else?
Thank you.
Be to help.
I will see you in a moment.
Wonderful.
The exit.
I'm gonna close the door behind him.
Okay, sounds good.
Thurgle, I need you to test a theory for me.
Okay.
Can you try communing with Hephaestus, please?
Sure, give me 10 minutes. Is there anything specific you want me to ask?
No, I'm worried that communication with the deities are being blocked. Here. I'm worried it's a geographic lock.
Then I will try my best. Bear with me a moment.
Absolutely.
Would that affect his abilities overall in the area for spells or things like that if Hephaestus
I
is
don't know,
blocked from Thurgle?
but I would like to know that now before we go over to the ship.
Carry on.
Yes.
Don't worry, Thurgle. I believe in you.
Give me a moment.
So you spend the next 10 minutes beginning your commune. Anybody doing anything in particular while waiting, or are you just kind of hanging around? Eating
I think
food?
we're hanging out.
I'm actually going to pull out a chunk of wood from the dummy, and I'm actually going to just start carving it.
How do you have a chunk of wood from the dummy that you destroyed?
I put them in my bag because I was going to rebuild it.
It's just really funny. I'm gonna rebuild.
I'm just going to pull out my little dagger, and I'm actually going to start cutting it into the shape of a little hammer and start tying it off and stitching leather with it.
Okay.
I'm gonna come over to Salima and be like, "What you making?"
Liv is
Hammer.
continuing to eat and keep watch.
Make a religion check if you'd like, Lerica.
It's a terrible roll for being that emphatic. That is a 6.
Yeah, you're probably wishing to spend a little more time in the temple.
What you making?
Well, I feel really bad for the dummy, and I will replace the dummy because I ripped it completely asunder and into
Oh, that's
itty-bitty
fine.
pieces.
I need to get an enchanted dummy anyway. I just got that was the one that came with the house. Enchanted
That's why I
dummies
feel
are.
bad.
It came with the frame.
It came
Exactly.
with the frame.
That's why I feel bad.
I'm
Which also
sure
makes me
Mother's going to
wonder-
replace them.
This also makes me wonder if the wood has something to it as well, now that I'm whittling it, considering it was enchanted within the house, at the house. I don't know enough to know any better, but alright.
So just so I'm clear, you carving the symbol?
Yes.
Cool.
I'm gonna try feeding Sparks a berry.
Sure.
And see if he likes it.
In my ignorance, I don't know if there's anything more sophisticated
Fair
that
enough.
I need to do.
Fair enough. You do recall
So-
there's 2 hammers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how many hammers I can carve within a 10-minute commune.
Fair enough. You'll start
So
your
I'm-
process. It
I'm
takes time.
starting the process
Yeah.
and doing it as nice as I can, considering I have a lot of like leather scraps to work with,
Sure,
and I have leather working tools and things like that. And
Yeah, so you just start whittling away. All right.
I'm just sitting here the entire 10 minutes like, do you like this one?
Thurgle. You begin your commune. The sense starts to fill the room. Sweet, bitters, floral. Eventually, it give way. Smell of slag, steel, coal. Feel the already warm, hot environment, which you realize by this point has now been cooled to a more temperate degree for your friends, is now seem to be connecting. Certainly feeling the same as you usually do. Do you have any questions? Or are you just testing?
Hephaestus, thank you for joining me in this time of need. I have a few questions if you're willing to answer. My first, Thelatos. Is he aware of the situation at hand?
You feel surge of ringing. Ting, 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 ting. Slow and steady. Maybe he is.
Did he allow this to happen?
Feel sound of metal on metal. Quiet or distant. Returns where it was before your. Not allowed.
Are the gods planning anything to stop this?
There's a brief surge of it turns to that old, almost like dying embers in a fire. And as that feeling settles in, heat returns to normal. Eventually the senses return to the world. Sweet herbal note. Incense returns. It becomes cool. Come out of trance-like state.
I am still able to commune with Hephaestus.
That's good news.
Fantastic.
And I did ask him a few questions about the god of the sea. And it seems that he did not permit it. And they're not necessarily planning anything to assist us, so we may have been brought forth by their will to...
Is it that they're not planning to assist, or is it that they cannot assist? Has something happened to your gods?
That is a good question that I would have to essentially consider next time. They are not lengthy in words during the commune. They tend to only answer yes or no.
Chance, but you can always try to bring them here yourself.
I'm just happy we're still able to commune, so it's not the area.
So it seems.
Disallowed from retribution, from a god of retribution, known for vengeance and retribution.
This is why I wonder if something has happened to the gods themselves, as to why only one is able to commune at this time.
That's my inclination as well. I think something is barring or controlling the gods, which means that this... What is his name? Whatever. The Grey Swan may have some pact with a deity or a creature of great power that is galvanizing his effort.
That is very possible.
I swear to whatever god, if this is the fucking Lord of Eyes fucking wish fight again, oh.
It'd be very interesting.
Well, I can say he's certainly drunk it.
But to knock out an entire region's group of gods, full religion and all, to every other priest in the area. Yet Thurgoll was one of the ones that actually would battle it. I don't believe it would be the Lord of Eyes for this. I would imagine him being punished, not maybe the entire region.
The Lord of Eyes. I think that he was a part of something much greater and more powerful, and killing him caused a bit of a ripple effect that we have yet to see unfold.
This ship was stolen several weeks before we had our battle, so...
Let's watch
They
the
lost-
powers of this this adversary. If there are similar parallels or the very striking, disgusting skin motif, I think it's going to be very obvious.
There was something the Lord of Eyes did mention prior to his disappearance or death or whatever, that essentially is saying that there were others. We may not be looking specifically for this skin flesh type experience. It could be a completely different fruition altogether.
You're saying the Lord of Eyes mentioned he's not working alone.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly.
I remember that as well.
So
Now,
not be worrying about the Lord of Eyes, but this one could be the fucking Lord of Feet for all we fucking know.
that would be hilarious to just assemble an entirely new deity by the end of them, with the carcasses of all the ones we carved down.
It would
Can
No.
we not take chunks from all of the areas, though, please?
Maybe.
Eh.
We'll see. Now, let's discuss tactics. We had a plan. We came up with a plan last time.
Yes. We instilled the last, I don't even remember that child's name, but he was going to spread the rumor for us that Theos, the god of the Tempest, was angry with this.
And we are going to create a theatrical spectacle.
Now, given what we know now, do we still feel comfortable moving forward with that plan?
No, because if something has happened to the gods and these people are the ones that have done it, they are going to be far less likely to believe it.
I don't know, I was pretty convinced. But
I
we
mean,
should
it just
not laugh.
depends.
You may have been. I doubt this person that's running around sprouting our story is. Especially if someone has done something as catastrophic as removed the powers or capabilities of a god.
At this point, I do believe that we may not be as effective as I would like to be without having the supplies that I requested from our blacksmith and the alchemist.
I don't think it is wise to initiate combat today, but I do think we need more information.
Yes.
Well, then I guess it is time to go to the outside.
Reconnaissance would be the best course of action right now to figure out the next steps.
I do have something that might be useful that I'd like to share before we leave. I think I've polymorphed a few of you before.
Oh yes, I remember being a dragon. That was fun as hell.
I'm now able to do 2 at once.
You know, it might be very useful to just transform us into something inconspicuous and just flit about to gather some information of people who would be very unsuspecting of a beetle on the wall or a seagull on the shoreline.
That's what I'm thinking as well. Also, having flight out on the water is going to be tremendously helpful because it'll allow you to do things like dive into fog banks. So we can keep our rule of 2s, so no one's staying alone. I transform 2 of you to take off, go with your familiars, And then 2, me and someone else will stay on the ship while I'm holding concentration on your spell. And that way we can get some eyes in the sky to see if we can see any large shapes moving on the horizon.
The unfortunate but fortunate thing about these forge ships is they do tend to leave smoke trails. So unless he has managed to be able to hide that, it can be fairly traceable for several miles.
What kind of level of illusion would require to get rid of an entire smoke trail for a giant iron ship?
It is not easy.
I can think of a few different ways, just based off my talents to do that. It's not easy.
But it's
Not impossible, but not easy.
Yeah.
Well, they don't know we're coming, right?
Valeric, if you're going to be staying on the ship, I would like to stay behind and make sure that you're safe. Especially
Then let's...
I know the perception skills of our 2 friends here far outstrip my own. I feel like would not be very useful out on the open there.
Wonderful.
And I'll have a
Then you
dare.
and I'll stay there. You can take a dare, and actually, Thurgle, you can take your familiar as well. And
So
the
you
4
got
birds.
that, right?
Yeah.
So, let me know when we want to do that, be it on the ship or around the town.
How long does the spell last?
An hour.
I think it would be best to wait till we're at sea.
Alright.
That works for me, and if worse comes to worse, I can still get us all to walk on water. If something does happen.
Well, and this one can breathe underwater, so
Yes,
not
it is
too
no problem
concerned.
for me.
I'm not so inclined. But I can swim.
I thought we were going to be able to wrap this up quickly. Given the severing the connection with gods, that has me a lot more concerned.
Yes. The fact that I am still able to commune with Hephaestus, but so many priests have not communicated with theirs, is very concerning.
Where's the nearest temple of Hephaestus? Maybe we should check in with their priests and see if they can still commune with Hephaestus. See if the connection is people who are native, that are, or not native, but people who are living here, and the fact that you were away when it happened is what saved you.
That is completely fair.
Thurgle, I don't want to claim that I know your religion at all, but I will also ask, is there something that you can do to your gods out here on the sea and things like that that would cause them to sever ties?
Like most gods, they have a will of their own, so essentially it is up to them. They will either communicate with you directly, or they will decide that maybe they just want a break from hearing your voice, or you may have offended them in some way because of your actions. It is really hard to say what could create this rift, but as he said, we haven't had something like this in generations, so it is a unique instance. If I have another opportunity to be able to commune, I might be able to sort of ask questions onto what may have caused this, if it was actually in fact by the people of the lands themselves, or if it was an external force. But
you cannot ask until tomorrow, correct?
I believe so. I mean, I technically did it as a ritual, so I think I do have to wait till tomorrow, though. Let me clarify.
Just so the DM knows, I'm still whittling in case I can get to that second hammer.
That's good. Go ahead and make a dexterity check, just general. Do you have like woodcarver's tools?
I'm basically using my leatherworker's tools. I have leatherworker, cartographer, navigator tools, and my handy dandy blade.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just general dexterity check.
Uh, 19 plus 4, 23.
Okay. You're making good time. It's very rough and rudimentary, lacks any sense of like detail or refinement to it, but it's coming along nicely. Like if keep going for another like half an hour or so, you could probably end up with a pretty decent, still needing details, but a pretty decent, little symbol.
Fantastic. I'm hoping the leatherworking will even that out.
Fair enough.
So I am able to commune with him multiple times in the day, but there is a possibility he may not actually answer me altogether. So it is good to at least spread it between rests.
Understood.
You can try your Hail Mary once a day as well. And at the very least, have a direct conversation that's not limited to yes or no answers.
What is that again?
I've seen some clerics. Thea did it once, where she literally summoned Bahamut here
In an arena.
and struck
During
down a
a-
foe.
Battle.
You also saw Uther do it.
And Uther brought his god in when we got back from the Lord of Eyes, and she teleported them away. I'm trying to remember the name of it. She talked about it so much. Divine intervention? Does that sound familiar to you?
Give me a second.
I mean, I've seen it, but I don't know what it's called.
I remember in passing she mentioned, but I mean, it could just be what she calls it. I don't know. Either way, I think it makes sense to start packing up our stuff. Who all has been here on a ship besides Thurgle?
You and I.
Alright. So we have an idea of what we're getting into.
I've been on many ships, but never for going into battle. I could prove different.
I have a potion of flying that I picked up while we were in town, and a few potions of healing. I think we checked and everyone has potions of healing now, right?
That is correct.
Wonderful. Then I think we're ready to meet up with our whatever his name is.
Yes, we should stop by the Shrine of Festive first, so that we can check to see if any others are able to commune with him, and then definitely proceed.
Start making our way over there then.
Sounds good. I will lead the way, because I would know where it is, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are leaving without the ambassador?
I was gonna say, we're to wait for the ambassador.
We said we were going to meet with them.
Way is the Temple of Hephaestus. From where we are right now, GM.
So Thurgle, you would know. There are two temples. One is a place exclusively of kind of worship, like prayerful worship. And then in like the dead center of the city are the Divine Forges, where most people dedicated to Hephaestus worship through craft. But one is definitely more kind of hands-on. You commune through action, through creation. Whereas one is like, make an offering, say some prayers, participate in a couple of rituals over there. So you got two options. Either way, one is dead center of the city, and the other is the opposite end of the city.
I'm going to pass this information on to them.
Fair enough.
So, like a half hour walk, an hour walk, 10 minutes?
Probably about, say, maybe 20-30 minutes to the center of the city. Kind of
Right,
navigating through everything.
Don't think we can get there and back in time then.
Probably not.
Then why don't I could stay back if you guys wanted to head there now. And that way I can meet up with the ambassador and study the maps he has. And then I can go over measurements and stuff with my cartographer tools and things like that to determine the devastation and things like that, to see if we have any kind of additional information about what they're working with, on top of having a giant ship made out of metal.
In all
Sounds fine
honesty,
to me.
my lack of desire to know much about religion, I should probably stay with you, Selima, especially because then I can commit those maps to memory so we don't have to worry about if anything happens to them.
That is actually what I was going to recommend.
So Thurgle and I'll go venture to see what's going on with Hephaestus, and we'll meet back up with you soon.
Just, yeah, keep the sending stones on, so in case something does occur.
I have one that connects to both of them, so we should be okay.
Okay, sounds good. Good. All right. So, Valerica and Thurgle, you guys head off to the. Which one are you going to? You going to the Divine Fortress? Or are you going to the Tion, the Temples district?
Because Thurgle is extra, he wants to go to the Divine Forges.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Rightly so. Rightly so. Rightly so. Okay. Perfect. So, as you exit, the air once again becomes
Pleasant.
pleasant for Thurgle, awful for Valerica. Although Valerica kind of getting a feel for it. All right, this isn't too bad. This isn't too. You're used to fire. This is just a lot of it, and a lot of this is just what happens when you're around heat and fire and things that burn. Like, it's uncomfortable at first, but you're starting to settle into it a little more than you had thought.
All right. I can handle.
Kind of looking around, like as you exit the building, just kind of up ahead, you can see the soft kind of glow coming out of a portion of the ground where it kind of dips off. You look around, you can see buildings lining the walls of this cavern, built up into all the way up to the top, 30, 40, 50 feet high. See people moving around, pushing carts, carrying various objects. It looks very much like any other city you've been in, just underground. But eventually, Thurgle leads you across the bridge. You feel the sudden rise of heat from below, and you look over, and where one would normally find a river, you do in fact find a river of molten lava, molten rock, slowly moving its way. You kind of look, you can see it kind of dips off down either mountain. Thurgle, that kind of leads out.
I'm lean over to Valerica and tell her, I used to fish here as a child. Never caught anything.
I wonder why. Kind of nudge
We
him.
didn't use the right bait.
Look, go ahead and make a perception check, Valerica, as you're kind of crossing over this bridge.
I think we have established that it's not a strong point of mine. Yeah, 8.
8? Okay, yeah. You kind of look out over the lava river. It's just so much heat. Your eyes start to water a little bit. It takes you a second to kind of whoa, okay, all right. Never mind.
Beautiful, I know.
Beautiful, yeah.
You continue walking, and it's large and cavernous, and the center of these streets are mostly open, leading to 40, 50, 60 foot streets of kind of cobbled stone, but buildings built high up on either side of the walls. Very few freestanding buildings. Very, very few. The one you were in is kind of one of maybe a small handful within the entire city.
Truly, it is a marvel to behold. The architecture is incredible.
They spent a lot of time doing this, and it shows.
It really does. I've never seen its equal.
Welcome to my homeland.
It's lovely to see it. It really is.
I'm very happy you were able to come here. I wish it were under different circumstances as more of vacationing, but I'm glad you're able to see it.
I am too. You know, honestly, I haven't spent that much time outside of Albanor.
That is
But
fair.
this world has some beautiful, beautiful things to offer. I'm glad to start my journey here.
If this resolves in a safe manner, I would like to take you back to my homeland.
I'd love that. That sounds incredible.
Let us continue.
Okay. As you continue walking through what you would assume would be winding streets, but find these wide open tracts of space, plenty of room for people to move around. And you can kind of see why. People are moving heavy objects around a lot. Stone, metal, all kinds of really burdensome things. You normally in cities see parts of food, livestock, nothing of the sort here. Just these big, heavy parcels that everyone's carrying around. Eventually, up ahead, you see a much larger open space, huge, cavernous space. This massive series of columns extending all the way up, 100 so feet. Swear a couple of them maybe. And then you kind of lose in the dark. There's this soft glow, and this is the place where most of the heat is concentrated. You can see some of the first major amounts of masonry that you've seen, truly carved stone that's standing out in the center of this space. You can see a number of large stone buildings dotted around these massive metal containers dotting around this area. You start to notice that there's these 3 major, almost perfectly circular pools deep within the bubbling and churning mass of molten rock. You can see these thick, heavy pipes diving deep into the glowing red hot. You can see channeling through all this space different tubes carrying this heated, molten earth to each of these buildings. You can see these smokestacks as it's out of the all kind of funneled upwards and out, not dispersing as most smoke does, but just traveling slowly. And you hear the at one time discordant and sonorous sound of flashing metal. From
Just kind of glance over at Thurgle to watch his reaction. This is like such a home moment for him that I want to see it through his eyes.
Thurgle, you see the very familiar home that is your home. This was not the place you were born. Not born of flesh and blood, but this is the place where Thurgle was born and shaped. You hear the ringing of amateurish newcomer eager to try their craft. You hear the melodious ringing of masters of the craft. You wait for a moment, expecting the sound doesn't come. Valerica, you hear this heavy, deep ring as you notice these 2 large stone structures a channel of this lava flowing between them. Kind of look hard to see in kind of the dim light of space. But you look at Thurgle and you can see this look of recognition. Thurgle, the moment could not have come soon enough. The point where there's almost this fear that true divine gone quiet and dark. But that sound echoes and resonates. You see the very massive these amalgamations of stone as they prepare shape and form constructs of inside. As you guide Valerica through the space, you can see the bustle of people working on smaller crafts and projects. Weapons, tools, farm implements, nail, everything imaginable that can be smithed out of metal is being made here. Valerica, you see everything from the most roughshod square nails being drawn out by these kind of waifish, thin, covered in soot, from your perspective, children. Like bright eyes, excitement, but lacking in all sense of skill. Just trying and practicing to these massive, muscle-bound men and women, all places that you've seen, some you are particularly familiar with, some you know of, but not closely, creating weapons, armor. Some you're seeing some of the magical rods that you've seen, the shells that would become enchanted items. Again, you hear that boom, resonant sound your heart almost catches that tries to keep up with it. Looking around, you see different metal, what were iron and steel being start to see golds, silvers being shaped in delicate arrangements, diadem, ring, necklaces. You see an entire section of the Divine Forges just jewelers. These intricate and creations. You pass by one of these massive structures, huge pillars of stone. Between them, these heavy chains. As you approach, you can hear them kind of clinking as you see this massive column of stone rising. This sheet of metal, glowing hot, sitting upon a space that an anvil the size of at least a few dozen dining tables, massive in scope. As it again comes down, this time you watch it as it shakes the ground that you're on, flattening even. You can see a group of people shifting in this massive, trying to push this huge sheet around, get it back into position as the massive press is raised into the again. You can see adorned these things, the very familiar symbols that Thurgle wears. Almost every major point here has in some way been blessed or is connected or built in honor of shaping.
At this point, you will literally be seeing tears coming down Thurgle's face.
I kind of give like the reassuring, like friend, like shoulder squeeze. It's beautiful.
It is good to be home. I'm going to find the nearest master blacksmith.
Okay.
I'm going to follow quietly
Okay.
with reverence.
Fair enough. Looking around, Thurgle, you know the bustle of this place. It is far from serene. This is not a place of quiet worship. This is a place of you do stop working until it is time to stop working. And you've been in that place where interrupting such reverie, as it does become almost meditative, is almost impossible. You look around, seeing if there's any inlet, any moment, any pause in the movement, not wanting to disrupt the song that is this orchestra. As you're looking around, you feel this heavy hand on your shoulder. You turn to see the face of someone you've not seen in a very, very long. Valerica, you see Thurgle. Your kind of danger sense dulled slightly, but still alert and aware of your environment. You see Thurgle with this tall individual behind him, not much taller than you. You look over his features, he is kind of carved and chiseled, no facial hair, which is a little bit unusual in this area, but covered in enough grime and soot that he may as well be sporting, a bit of afternoon stubble. He is built as though muscle just kind of exists, and he just happened to, show up, and he looks like muscles just kind of became a person. And you're sitting and running through your mind of how a person can become like this, and you recall your brother, who is large and very muscular. Remember Uther, and then you notice the kind of fine pointed ears, and the far cry from most elves you've seen being lithe and thin. You see perhaps an elf that might have eaten other elves to become what he is. You've never seen this before. You weren't entirely sure it was possible. But you see this massive elven hand on Thurgle's shoulder and cracks this smile, bright as day. Stark white teeth cutting through the black grime on his face. And you see this gleam appear as this booming, friendly voice. Thurgle! It's you! You're back!
By Hephaestus well, you son of a bitch!
You recognize an old friend who's been around longer than you have by this point. Eutos, the Master Smith. Excellent armor maker. Trained you a little bit. And then you rapidly surpassed him. He kind of looks around. What are you doing here?
Hephaestus has called me. He said you needed some help.
You've spoken with him.
Yes, very recently. Have you not?
It has been weeks since I've spoken.
When did this happen?
Kind of looks around. Just one day we were communing and then nothing. I sought his guidance on a piece I was working on, and there was nothing but he's spoken to you. Oh, thank. I've heard rumors. He kind of hushes down a little bit. He's not the only one who's been quiet. But I'm glad there's one among us who can still speak with him. What are you doing back? And is she with you?
Yes, this is my friend. This is Valerica Indrik. She is from the mainland.
Yes.
You see him beam looking at you, and he just holds out this giant, meaty hand.
I'm gonna shake it and brace for my hand to be squished.
You brace for a squish that doesn't come. This is a man who knows his strength very well. So much so, like, you kind of watch, and you can see his sleeveless arms. You can see the muscles kind of contract and tense with just sheer control, as he's conscious of his body movements. And it's a firm but very deft handshake. You kind
Countess
of realize
Valerica Indrik of Shadowfen. Pleasure to meet you.
He kind of looks around at Thurgle, kind of bows.
No, really, it's fine. It's fine.
Forgive me, I don't know the customs where you are from, but a countess? He kind of looks at Thurgle. Important, yes? Well, thank you for gracing us with your presence and for being our Thurgle's companion.
Of course, and thank you for such a warm welcome into such an amazing building. This is truly magnificent.
I hope you can truly see the glory that is the Divine Porch. He looks around.
It's incredible.
You will find no greater place in the world.
That is for sure.
But, well, what brings you both here? Showing your friend, yes?
Yes, very good friend. We were coming to see if the gods have abandoned the people, or what is going on. Have they provided a reason why, or did they just disappear?
Well, if there were anyone I would want on the case, it would be you, Porchmaster. Come with me.
Of course, lead the way.
He guides you through, cutting through some of the forge. You can see students and masters alike all practicing their trade still. Start to develop a little bit of a headache, Valerica, as it is lovely and all very much to an accord, but it's busy and there's a lot of noise. And still, every few minutes, there's this thump that you feel like is hammering your body just into place. It's just so heavy. Just sheer raw, just into the ground.
I'm gonna play it down. I'm not owning this headache right now. Or I am owning this headache. This headache is not owning me.
You're owning the headache, it's not... Okay, cool, got it.
Yeah.
Got it, okay. You're eventually led through some of the buildings and into one of the, one of the stone spaces that's kind of separate as he leads you in. A couple of individuals who seem to be doing polishing, cleaning, a variety of different items. Seems like he's taking you into what looks like the final stages of an armor crafting section. You can see lovely sets of plate, half plate, even the studs on the studded leather look fantastic. Just sheets and sheets and sheets of chainmail, all kind of being formed and set into different shapes and pieces for different configurations of humanoid-like beings. Eventually he does lead you into a back space where you can see scrolls and carvings of diagrams and schematics, just all kinds of on the walls and on shelves everywhere. You can see this absolute perfectly organized space where there's different tools laid out. You can see there's a set of armor that looks like it's having these very intricate little carvings put into it. lettering, designs that are being. See another set that looks very similar, but a lot more ornate and probably for show. A lot less practical looking, but gorgeous. You can see it's got like gold inlay in different places, silver cutting through. You swear you see mithril in a decorative capacity, which is weird, very excessive, but somebody wanted it. He closes the door behind you. Well, welcome. He kind of looks over at you, Valerica. While I expect that you, being in the company of one such as Master Thurgle, would know not to touch a smith's tools, I would simply ask you to avoid touching too many things in here, if you don't mind.
Of course, I will keep my hands to myself gladly.
I appreciate it, thank you. Of course, I do not doubt that you in any way, shape, or form would ever do such a thing. I just have to make it clear.
By the way, Sparks is not out right now.
Okay, got it.
We do not need to add more complication to the system.
Fair enough. So, as to the issue of our gods.
Yes.
I hear rumors, mostly. It has been some weeks. So, of course, it takes time for the stories to grow. So, hopefully, we are at the beginning before they are too embellished or fabricated entirely. What I do know is that we have not been able to reliably contact the Feist. It has been inconsistent and sporadic at best, answers unclear. From what we have gathered, it is... he seems distracted.
Distracted? In what way? Can you tell?
You know how decisive he is. He looks over at Valerica, not with confirmation, but as a statement. Like, you know how decisive he is. His answers have been non-committal, unclear. It's odd, strange. I've never experienced such a thing, even when he disappeared hundreds of years ago for a time. He just didn't answer. And then he came back and, turns out they threw quite a party. There it goes. But,
what have you been asking him?
Everything from the mundane to the profound. Of course, you recall when we first teach those who wish to be truly dedicated how to commune and pray, and those who obtain his blessing gain a more direct channel, and we help them by asking simple questions about craft and the finer delicacies of it. They turn to him for instruction as much as they turn to their own teachers. But he's been reticent to give instruction, or some of the instruction he gives we know is incorrect.
Incorrect? What does he... With those incorrect answers, what was the question?
Well, one of the students I can think of, but a week ago, perhaps, asked what kind of nail might best be used when making a set of plate for one of our centaur clients, and recommended he asked more plainly if he could make a nail just out of simple steel work. The answer would have, of course, been yes. Nothing complicated about it. But it was the most resounding no we've heard in a long time. And when the students, on a whim, I applaud him for his ingenuity, asked if it would be better to have something like adamantine He said yes. And then the student asked if mithril would be better, which it would, because it needs to be light. He also said yes. When communing again the next day, all of the answers were reversed. He's not known to be that fickle.
No.
And the standard of practice is not... He looks over at Valerica. I do not know how much you know of Christus, but there is room for experimentation, for trying new things. And then there is room to do them the right way.
I've only learned as much as I've seen through Thurgle and the powers that Hephaestus has granted him. I've seen Thurgle turn a great number of blacksmiths to the light of Hephaestus, so props to Thurgle for that. Spreading the good word.
Well, I hope this perhaps helps him compete us better then. It's a problem of followers. What struck me as odd was that upon the third commune, he refused to answer the first two questions. And then the student, clever and devious as he is, asked if wood would be the most ideal fastener for plate armor. And Hephaestus said yes. Wood! Wood! Can you believe it? Wood!
That
And of
is
course,
very-
another student communes the same day, asks a series of other questions related to other things, and gets perfectly acceptable answers. I do not know what is happening. If he's displeased, if he has suddenly taken a liking to playing tricks on us. But is but a part of the problem. And from what I hear, other gods are being either just as inconsistent or not speaking at all.
It sounds as if it's not the gods at all, but imposters.
I would have thought the same thing, were it not such a bizarre idea. Who could impersonate a god like that? Who could intercept a message to a god?
I don't know who, but I'm pretty sure there are people that claim themselves as gods that are not.
No, that is true.
If I could be so bold as to ask,
Boldness is favored.
given... Has anything changed in your normal day-to-day life in the past several weeks? Let's say the past 3 weeks. Have you started going to a new bar or getting food from a different part of the island? Have you started
Dennis thinks for a second.
staying out later? Has a town crier been coming through more?
There have been more rumors of attacks on various coastal towns.
Mm-hmm.
But such things are usually cleared up very quickly. Piracy is not exactly encouraged here. We have plenty of privateers, he looks over at Thurgle, who make quite a good living off of eradicating such scum. But I have not changed my routine.
Has there been any new mining of any sort? Any new caverns? Any new veins discovered that may be providing new essentials?
Nothing here. Nothing new. We're
Materials that get circulated throughout the town. What is something that all religious people use? I know Hephaestus is a god of the forge.
yes.
I'm trying to think if a trade good might have been compromised. Or allowed some sort of a magical incantation to be put in all of the different religious centers throughout the city. Do you get holy water from the same place?
We do, yes.
Where do you get your holy water from?
The faucet, you just ask them to bless it.
Essentially, it can be done that way, yes. When fresh water is gathered, we take it to the and one of the priests will bless it. It's not common here, but it can be done. But nothing has changed, as far as I know. This is perhaps the strangest part of all of this, is that from what we know, there was no unusual desecration of a temple that we're aware of before this began. There was no act of blasphemy. The forges are working perfectly fine. The mountain stable. No quakes, no eruptions. There's been nothing that we know of in any way, shape, or form that would have caused this, as far as we're aware.
So really, one of two things is happening. Either your powers to communicate are being limited, or the gods' powers themselves are being limited.
Kind of see, he's kept a upbeat kind of air to his body, kind of energized. It's weird to see him kind of sink and deflate slightly. His body as a whole it feels like it kind of shrinks as he takes on a much darker tone. Well, I pray that is a problem on our end, not on theirs.
Rest assured, we're here to get to the bottom of it one way or another.
This is worse than we thought, isn't it?
There is only so much information I can provide you, my friend. But there is a reason I had returned.
Well, if there's anything I can help you with, please do not hesitate to ask.
Of course.
And
you see a small smirk actually appear on Thurgo's face, and he looks at Valerica. Valerica, do you happen to have the orb with you?
I do.
May I borrow that, please?
Please don't break it. We're gonna get the orb out and hand it to him.
which orb?
The orb of cleansing.
Oh, the orb of cleansing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna hand it to him and go, I need you to concentrate on this.
Kinda takes it. Very well. You see, like, all of the cruft and nonsense. Sparkling clean skin. It's immaculate. He is a stunning looking specimen. He is clean, trim, all the grime just off of him. His clothes look like they're freshly pressed. And looks around and feels like I just took a bath. Oh, I like this.
I do too.
I have grown fond of it as well, and I figured you'd need a nice little distraction.
I appreciate. He kind of looks over. You can see his eyes are starting to study almost every inch of this thing. How is this done?
It's an enchanted stone that you're holding. It allows infinite uses of cleaning.
Indeed. Does this clean other things or just people?
I believe you have to have an intelligence in order to concentrate on it, as Thurgo was explaining.
Do you ever have a downtime where you're not working on solving our god problem? I'd very much like to borrow this.
For what, pray tell?
I have some friends who might like it, and if we can make more, why not?
Absolutely. I think every member of our company would very much enjoy their own, as it has become one of our favorite tools, as we go through some very dark and disgusting and bloody places in this world.
And goodness knows it would be quite popular with the people who live here.
That is for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Though it might
I
make
can-
those who run the hot baths a little mad. That'd be the word.
It's a relatively mundane item. We can see about having one shipped over here. I don't think it would be that difficult.
If it's so mundane, I must wonder why they haven't sent it on over already. Are your people known for being selfish?
I largely think that depends on who you ask. Also, I don't know how many trade routes we have established. Do you even have an adventuring guild here? Kind of look between the two of them.
We do. Not big, but we do.
I'll have a word with them.
Very well.
My people, the Indrix, trade through that.
Understood. Oh.
It's gonna crop up someday at some random adventuring hall and be like, I want Valerica now.
It's funny.
Just like in the middle of nowhere. Like 20 episodes from now, we're gonna be in our little town established. And he's like, give me the cleaning stone.
Right. He's your new nemesis because you forgot to deliver one. New big bad.
I'm gonna make a note of that, jeez.
So he kind of looks, he hands it back almost begrudgingly. He looks at you, Thurgle. So, what is your next step? Where are you going?
Essentially, they're going to be taking us to the port, and we will be assisting with some of the patrols on the coastline.
Oh, back on the ship, eh?
It's hard to stay away.
I can imagine. You know, I do occasionally miss being on the sea as well.
What has kept you away?
I have too many students here. New people always need to learn. Besides, I do tend to get a little seasick.
That is fair.
And there is only so much the Ford ships can handle before I get... Ugh. So. Did we lose them?
I think so.
Oh no!
I was like, wow, he's thinking really hard.
I know, I was like, I did not say anything particularly profound.
Perhaps.
Message them.
I love the idea of trolling people as they come back. Like the story is radically changed.
Right?
He's yelling now. How dare you
Yeah.
insult?
Right?
That'd be hilarious. I'm so sorry.
Oh no!
I didn't mean...
They just had a full blackout power outage.
Oh no!
Whole block is down.
Whole block is down. Wow, okay, that sucks. Alright, well, they will stay there looking pretty.
Should we...
I'm gonna meanwhile.
Okay. Well, yeah?
I mean, we got Salima, and it's gonna be what, studying a map?
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask a bunch of questions and probably annoy the hell out of him because that's just what I do.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, eventually he does bring back, he does bring back a couple of documents and kind of rolled up, and you see a map of the hegemony of Eros, with a couple of like marked off spaces, about a dozen. Oh, lost them, and I gotta fix our thing. Right. I love this when this happens. Right.
Getting so good. Poor things.
I know. Alright, well, let's worse. Alright. So while I'm fixing that, I will just talk. So, you do see a map of the like I said, the hegemony of Mistros, with about a dozen or so I'm sorry, a dozen or so marked off locations. A couple along the coast, a couple that are more kind of in the middle of nowhere almost. Looks to be that they are probably small islands, either small enough to not be charted heavily, or they're covered, by the markings that are kind of like have them crossed off. You can see like little annotations and things of like little towns. There doesn't seem to be. Make a perception check. No, investigation. Let's do investigation.
That's 20.
20. Okay. Looking at it and trying to figure out like where the patterns are. Most of them are based around this area labeled Talasian Sea. It is a more open kind of space in kind of the western portions of Thros. Most attacks seem to be centered around more western half. There don't seem to be any kind of to the east, closer to Santos.
And where is the holy area? More western or more southern?
A little more western, but definitely far inland. It's right in the center of the Kentros Mountain. It is, yeah, it's pretty far inland. It's at least 100 miles.
And there's no way a ship is getting to that.
No. Looking at it, like you don't see any like river channels. You don't see anything that would indicate, yeah, this is definitely a way for a ship to get in. You do see, in the east there's this bay, where you can see you've got Mistros is kind of the southernmost portion of the continent. To the north is Oliseth and Zagord. And in this bay is the coastline where all three of these nations kind of have borders. Right on the border between Oliseth and Mistros, there is a river where the border follows, and there's a bit of a lake, and then another river that heads up to a small marked settlement called Tribunum that sits at the foot of the mountains, still a pretty far distance from the marked indicator for Pyrgos. That's kind of like the next closest town or settlement of some kind, whether it's a city or a town. Sure. That's the only kind of river or tributary in, but it is all in the east, and there's no indication of acts in that direction. Like I said, most of them are centered around the Vulcanos island, the Elenis island, and then portions of the kind of western coast of the main, and then just a bunch of small in the. It's all coastal or island, like small.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look at him and say, out of curiosity, am I allowed to write on this map or anything of this nature?
Oh, please, it's yours. Take it.
So Selima's going to reach into her bag and just this full-on cartographer setup with special pens and measurements and things like that. And she's going to sit there and say, what was the first information you received, the first place that was attacked, and I'd like to go by pattern and days before the next attack. Or hours, even if that may.
Okay.
I'd like to try to trace the pattern.
He pulls up a stack of documents, and kind of goes through kind of one by one. roll another investigation check.
Nice to meet today, dice. 11, 6, 17.
17? Okay. You go through and you draw your kind of lines in kind of an order.
Because I also have a +1 to cartography as well.
Oh, perfect,
so
right,
I don't know if
okay.
that mattered.
So it's 18 instead?
Now it's 18.
Okay, perfect. All right. It doesn't matter. You
thought I'd mention
plot out,
that.
You plot out the points, and you try to find a pattern, and you feel like it's almost becoming a pattern. It kind of follows this arc for a while, and then suddenly jumps to a completely separate location. And you're like, that's... And then you try and follow it from there, and it seems to follow kind of another pattern, and then it jumps again. From what you can tell, there doesn't seem to be any specific organization as far as order goes. But
between these huge... Go ahead.
You do notice that while not evenly spaced, the locations known to have temples are never back to back.
So they're hitting a temple, a regular city or town, and then a temple location?
At least 2 or 3 other small villages. Like one was like one village, and then another temple, and then it was like 4 villages, another temple, 2 villages, 3, then 2. Yeah.
Am I getting the sense that they're lost? By looking at this map, like they're trying to find something and they're just not getting it?
Looking at it, if you didn't know that these were people who likely know how to sail the seas, they would look hopelessly lost. There is no system here that you can see. There is no plan that you can see. There's no sense of any form of ability to navigate other than they just move at a reasonable, like, judging by the distances and knowing likely what their ships would be, attacking within reasonable amounts of time. Like, it's not like they're wandering around and like a week later they traveled, a day's worth of sailing because they just drifted. They seem to know what they're doing, but if you didn't know that they were proficient, you would think these people are hopelessly lost.
I'm going to ask him, so, of the gods, would there be any that would maybe try to hamper them and try to confuse them in maybe their sailing patterns? Have there been any unusual storms lately?
Well, any storm would be under Theos, his domain, but nothing out of the ordinary. Thalasos would, of course, control the seas, but he's been very quiet about all. If there was some intent from the gods to interrupt these things, it is not apparent to any of us. It is possible that Thalasos is in some way, shape, or form attempting to create a conspiracy of the seas to prevent them from reaching their target. It is also possible that Theos is guiding the wind to prevent them from sailing efficiently or in the direction they so choose and force them to correct course.
Because I'm noticing massive gaps between this location and that location. So I'm curious if there was a storm in that particular time and they maybe got switched around. And the other question I'm having is the speed of these ships. How fast do they go?
They can... I mean, they are ships. They're not quick. Yes.
The ship's made of metal, so I have many questions, but I'm just curious if there's a means of
Well, for the
propulsion.
longest time, we did not know that it was the Caros. We assumed regular wooden ships. The forged ships are not all that much slower. They do not rely on sails, but forges within them propel them.
So then Theos would not be affecting their sailing because they have no wind?
Assuming they use the forged ship, yes. But we've not heard any rumors from any of the surviving of any of the forged ship being confirmed. We've heard one or two mentioned, but nothing so consistent that we initially dismissed them as being the forged ship was in the area at the time and was a sighting, but not necessarily the one doing the attacking.
So would there be reason to believe there might be more than just one ship then? Maybe they have a smaller vessel that's coming.
It is possible if Master Thurgle had said that his hat was bigger than he deserved, it's possible he has arranged a fleet. And honestly, a forged ship would probably be a very good bargaining chip for doing so. Pirates are not known for working together, but either under threat or emboldened by a particularly demoralizing tool, they may just feel so inclined to take bolder action than band forces.
Okay. So there's no communing. I can hope and assume gods are holding them back in some way. There's a chance for a fleet, chance for a man with a fancy hat with a lot of obscene amount of power, or at least guiding enough individuals with power behind them. So it wouldn't surprise me there'd be more than one ship, especially if it's not confirmed by any survivors to see a giant vessel made out of metal, but that there were ships present, or at least one. And there's no way to move these into the mainland, but there is a way to use other vessels to get to the mainland, smaller vessels, through river inlets.
It's just the one.
And there's been no more sightings since that last attack in that area?
The last attack was but a few days ago. There's been nothing. And occasionally, as we've seen by the reports, a few days will pass by between them, so we could reasonably expect one any day now. Where, we have no idea, though. We were hoping that we would find something, or that fresh eyes would notice something we had not. But honestly, it could be another temple, or it could be another village. We don't know.
So by all my lovely chicken scratch and things like that, could I have a vaguely presumable location of maybe 3 or 4 locations that we may have an idea of where they might hit next?
Yeah, looking at this, and kind of asking him to identify, he does take kind of a circle to certain areas and demarcates a couple more villages and a couple more temples that are known. In particular, two temples that are kind of in the island vicinity. One that is coastlines, and then about 4 or 5 small villages, a couple on the coast, a couple.
And what are the 2 temples of worship for that look like maybe could possibly be attacked? What are they worshiping?
Those 2 temples, they're both in the island area. One is to Thalasos, god of sea, and the other one is a temple to it is Thanades, the god of death and transition.
Do either of these temples have anything in particular, like maybe a legend of fantastic weaponry or objects, perhaps? Maybe to aid them with sailing?
Kind of thinks for a moment. Kind of pores over some of the notes, looks at the map. Nothing to say that these temples aided those who would visit them as travels. More than we would expect. But kind of see furrows his brow and grows silent and sort of mutters under his breath for a moment, then kind of shakes his head and nods. Silly.
My passive is 17 on perception.
Oh, you definitely notice he's kind of like thinking, and then he dismisses a thought. Kind of mutters.
I'm going to say dismiss nothing at this point, because if you're looking at the fact that gods have either been suppressed or whatever else, anything is up for chance at this point. Even if it's a legend and a rumor, anything can be up for chance. When I've dealt with people, ransacking entire countrysides, just based off the hint of something that could be there. People seeking power and doing desperate things are not above anything.
Well, kind of looks at you, looks at the map. He grimaces a little bit. This maybe foolishly childish. But well, we have the mainland, and then we have the two isles. There was, and these make up the 3 states that form the hegemony, all under the power of Pyrgos, the mountain. There was a myth, a legend, fanciful child's tale of there being another isle, as large as the ones we are on.
Like a hidden island?
Not hidden. The story says that it was once one of the siblings of the states. But that many countless generations ago, many thousands of years before, perhaps even before the dynasty itself, or perhaps during. We're not eliminating anything. Time is funny when it comes to stories. It was vanished into the ocean as Thalasos himself declared that it was to be reclaimed by the sea. It was a tale of the failings of arrogance and the willfulness of mortals to try and challenge the gods. It's a child's story, so it can't be that.
Let me put you into perspective of children's stories and boogeymen and things that haunt the nights and the things that shouldn't exist in what we perceive as a natural world. I have seen and witnessed things that consume the brains of things, that turn to mist and feast upon the living, man, woman, child alike, with absolutely no quarter. So, that being said, there are legends and myths, and there's grains of truth. Was it a god that sank an island? Who knows? Maybe a natural disaster. I've witnessed entire civilizations due to natural disasters. Mountains fall. There's countless of things that have grains of truth. But what would be so special about this island that would make them want to go there?
He looks at you for a moment. You kind of study his expression. You can see he looks like he's struggling to entertain this notion. He kind of takes a breath. Okay. assuming... Okay, let's assume. Let's assume. Because why not? We have nothing else. Assume it's true. Thalasos reclaimed the island. He thought it was arrogant, he thought it was blasphemous, whatever his reason. The gods do what they will. He reclaimed it, and it is now within the ocean, under his care. Truly, there is nothing there. I mean, what would be there?
What would be there?
I would imagine the bones of an entire people. I would imagine the ruin of a city. The villages, torn asunder by the tides. If anything remains, I mean, the waves beat against the rocks and they disappear over time. Why would anything within the ocean be preserved in such measure? And particularly if Thalasos had designs to eliminate it from existence. Why would he permit it to dwell there?
Gods do strange things. Gods cause things to happen. You hear whispers. You can hear insanity. They stumble upon your times of rest and meditation. Gods do very strange things in a lot of different ways.
You kind of crack a smile. Well, this is true. They are inscrutable sometimes.
They make decisions that only their own divine wisdom knows, be it far beyond me to even try to guess. But if he sank an entire island, let's just say, if he sank an entire island for it being arrogant and trying to challenge the gods, you said, what did they have on that island, other than the people? Because assuming these are people that have been living around the ocean their entire lives, they would have had means to possibly swim, get to ships, things like that, provided Thalasos allowed them to. What was on this island that had to get to the bottom of the ocean? That's the question I'm asking.
And I would assume rhetorical, because there are no answers for this.
There's nothing into whatever legend or child story about that.
The story I was told growing up, and even the one I told to my own children, it's one of a people who turned their backs on the gods and thought themselves better. Thus, they were smote from the world. Harsh, perhaps, but we are dealing with beings that are far beyond our knowledge, ability to understand. But that is the story that we all know. Hell, which is why it's foolish to think that this has anything to do. Unless they are all on some fanciful crusade where they believe these myths and are doing this purely out of this belief. Which would be insanity.
I would have called stealing an entire ship made out of metal insanity too.
Well, that's true.
I would have called cutting off all the gods, cutting off every single devout worshipper, teetering on the edge of that myself. Not to say that they may not have a divine wisdom for cutting off every single worshipper and every single priest and every single temple. Belief, they both carry the same word. So we have 2 temples, 4 to 5 small villages that are all a possibility, and an island that has no value that sank to the sea. Fantastic.
And now you see my...
I do.
Well... And anyway, perhaps the best next step is to simply attend the patrol and Pray you find something out.
Well, we should head in the direction of all of those locations, of all of those little villages and temples, in that general direction. Is that where it's going?
It was intended to stick mostly to coastlines, but it can be deviated from its course if you have some inclination. If you have
Just by
reason
measurements alone.
if you have reason to take it away, then by all means. The ship is yours, Master Thurgles, your friends. But we are at quite a loss.
I mean, believe me, I'm referring to your wisdom. I have studied maps, I understand them. I've studied measurements and speed and tracking things. That is my expertise. But when it comes to understanding ships and a religion that is not of my own, by any means, I want to be as certain as I quite possibly can be that we're headed in a direction where something will happen, and it's not happening in an entirely different place.
Definitely bears investigating more closely. And I think that with your group here, we can finally start making a headway. I'd love to capture one of those fools.
Fortunately, we're not in the business of keeping many alive.
Well, it's a close second. Answers would be fantastic, but if you solve the problem with everyone dead, then who am I to argue? They turned their backs on their brethren and their gods. As far as I'm concerned, their lives were forfeit long ago. I only want to ask for practical reasons. That we can find more of them.
Do we have any reason to believe they're communing with gods at all? Even in rumors of survivors?
I don't want to entertain the notion that the gods have sided with them against us.
I'm not implying, I'm just asking for crazy rumors. That's how I've made my life.
Well, foolish as they are, they would be even more fools to not seek aid of somebody.
Is there a deity in your realm that particularly hates maybe Thalassos and Theos? Maybe even Hephaestus? Gods do fight each other frequently. It's not surprising.
They do. They do fight one another. But the most treacherous of them is Talons. You see his eyes kind of linger for a moment in the direction of Pyrgos. He is the most apt to change like the seas he controls. Could curry his favor one day and then seem to lose it another, almost at random. The most inclined to conflict is Emos, he who holds domain over conflict and war.
Would he seek to lengthen this problem?
He may. To what end, I don't know. He usually tries to trigger actual warfare, not just raids, and even his own temples have been desecrated too, and what god would be so as to denigrate themselves? They're all vain, and rightly so. Rightly so. Eyes locked dead on that same direction. Rightly
I've
so.
seen gifts. I've been present in Thurgle's spiritual commune.
Then you know they are well deserving of any of the good thoughts they have of themselves and their high station, but vanity is as vanity is, and no one would willingly destroy their own home here, or their own face that they show to others. At least not. Amos would not show any sign of weakness if he could avoid to do so. To have his own temples desecrated would not be particularly favorable for him. It would honestly turn favors away. Many of his worshippers would turn their back on him when they find that he is not strong enough to protect his own home. So, but who knows? There is a masterful tactic in deception on the battleground. So if he's behind this, then it's possible, though unlikely. The silence of the gods means but a few things. One, this is pure coincidence, like it was last time. Two, they have, for whatever reason, forsaken us and cast in their lot with these Eritz. Blasphemer. Or something else is preventing from taking action. All I know is that people are dying.
Which we seek to stop. Of these magnificent gods, which one do you hail?
Myself? I am an adherent of God of Connection. He guides those who wish to connect with others. Thus, I find
And you have not been able?
I just find it pertinent that she, grants me the ability to speak with others well. Thus, the ambassador that has been sent into your care.
Which, believe me, we absolutely appreciate it. And I appreciate the maps, at least a heading, a direction, a myth, a legend, a whisper, anything like that is better. I've found them to be rooted with grains of truth amongst entire sacks of wheat. I mean, there's things that are within there that actually make sense versus things that could be totally fanciful that are just acts of deception.
Though I am loath to admit the possibility is such fanciful foolishness. I am sure there are much stranger things in this world. Goodness knows we have lost much.
Of the survivors, do they mention anything about abilities of those that ransack anything?
Nothing
Maybe
that stands out. Maybe a few magic users
elemental?
here or there. But those could be
But
part
nothing
and
of the
parcel.
lead.
Nothing that stands out in my mind anyway. But of course you have all of these, and he kind of gestures to like the large swaths of like scrolls and papers and documents. Copies of every report of every attack and every eyewitness account. So if on your journey you find something in there or make a connection that we did not, then by all means act on it. But
Do you have copies of these? I don't want to take anything.
These are copies. These are not originals. We do not give away original copies of anything.
I've dealt with cities and small towns that have given me the only copy of certain things.
You see, he kind of bulks a little bit. It's like you can get that sense, like I'm trying not to judge people. Well,
Believe me,
not all have the means, and if they are truly desperate, then I suppose that can be done. But
I do appreciate all the information. I'm sorry?
Just a quick prayer to Themos. But she blesses them with greater wisdom. But no, these are copies and they are yours, by all means. And please do be aware, in case you are fearing reprisal, any bearing the flags that have been associated with such acts of aggression, any who do not bear one of the insignia of one of the states, is considered outlaw. So they're not protected by any of the usual laws that would do so for any citizen of. They are considered free to do it as you wish.
Do you have perhaps sketches of what these flags look like currently?
You will find all of those reports.
I'm going to take that report and motion it over to Liv, which will be given information to later, and saying, for the love of every star I can think of at this particular moment, please study every single one of those flags. Please, God.
Okay. Yeah. She mentioned that she's just going to be studying everything and memorizing things.
Right. So
Cool.
I'll let her know the emphasis of all the flags that should not be sailing the
Flat out
area.
should not be there. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That I can hope Salima would recognize them, but I can't guarantee it.
That's fair. That's fair. And probably for good reason. Not a lot of them are distinctive. Most of them are plain black flags.
Okay, fantastic.
It
That'll
makes it
be
simple.
easy.
Makes it simple, but like not a whole lot of descriptive identifiers. Yeah. And just kind of looking over the reports, some of them don't even wear like bear flags. So.
Which makes sense too for ransacking anyway.
Sure.
Just out of curiosity, because I can imagine the arrogance of an individual that's already wearing a giant hat to want to for sure fly some form of color or something that marks them as their own.
This is how we have come to know him as the Siglos. He kind of gestures to one of the reports that does bear a purple field, which very similar to the color of Pyrgos. So fashioning himself much like a god. The color you looking at these reports, you gain a better understanding of the color schemes. You have Xanthos in the east is this kind of greenish kind of viridian color. Vulcanos is this kind of bright red. Elenis is a bluish kind of color, and then Pyrgos, which is at the center of everything, is a kind of a purple, like a royal color. This one is a very, very similar kind of purple. Not quite the same, but that could just be a variation in ink. But instead of the symbol that indicates Pyrgos, you see this weird kind of twisting of lines and shapes into whale that look like maybe tentacles, or perhaps.
Like, are we talking aquatic tentacles or like tentacles that shoot out of the back of something that grappled Liv 73,000 times?
No such details, so it could be either.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no such great details, but like you catch like the iconographies there. There's very simple kind of line work, very like one that would be easy to identify and easy to replicate. So very kind of minimal. But not like a whole lot of like, detail to it. But you do kind of get that distinct, like, this kind of looks like tentacles kind of spiraling, like in like a helix kind of thing.
And you said it was white?
Yes,
the tentacle
it is
pattern?
white on the purple plane field. This is how we know him as the Siglos. This is one of the only truly identifying features, and it is an old term for one who used to be very adept at navigating, rolling the seas. Before the hegemony, when the gods lived among us, it is said that the Cyclos was the closest to Thalasos. Do his bidding among. But after the gods retired to Pyrgos, such titles were lost and hegemony put in place. But that is ancient history.
Was this like a lesser god that did bidding? Essentially?
Essentially the highest of priests. Granted immense power for their service and servitude. Even when the gods lived amongst us, they were loath to lift a finger to do anything correctly. At least as far as manipulation of the world. They would freely interact, spend time, so they say. But no, for this one to be professing himself to be as essentially the mouthpiece for Thalasos is vile, to say the least, since there has not been such a person in 1,000 years. No god has taken any like it since. But if it is true, he has gained favor from Thalasos, and Thalasos has decided to change the way things are, then we may be dealing with other problems. But if this is the case, why would he speak to us? And why would he attack his own? There's too much about this to make sense. You ever read a story that makes it feel as though the writer had no idea what they're making things up as they go along?
Found myself reading a few things written by local individuals calling themselves great writers and bards.
We have too many
I've
of
seen
those here as well. But this is beginning to feel like a terribly written story. I suppose the good news is that most of the time they end very well with bizarre means. Or horribly with equally bizarre means.
That was my question. I was going to say, do all the stories here have happy endings? Because
many do,
most
many
of the
do
stories
not.
I've read.
Some do, some don't. Depends on your definition of a happy ending.
I'll agree with that one.
But if there is any other investigating you do, then let's conduct it now while we wait for your friends to return, Mr. Thurgle, and then we shall we'll take you to your ship. Yes?
Please.
Okay. And he kind of goes back to shuffling through some of the notes. And as we're going to do transition, we're going to call it for the night.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you guys. Too bad we lost Sabrina. Hopefully their power
Yeah.
goes back on soon. We'll catch them up
I
on
hope
what
so.
happened. And if not, we can always watch this. But thank you guys for playing. You guys are awesome. Thank you for asking plenty of questions and engaging. You guys are great. Thank you for any of you who are watching. Love you guys. You guys are fantastic as well. And oh, right, nothing next week. Forget. Available, unfortunately, but we will pick it up next.
Yes, we will be dark the weekend of the 19th and
Yes.
back the weekend of the 26th.
Perfect. Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Right about.
Get you guys on a ship and sailing the high seas. Yay! All right, take care, guys.